Hi everyone, my name is Lillian Ruiz and I am the instructor for PCS 101 Intercession. Welcome. And this is our first class, December 29th. And if you've taken intercession classes before, you probably know that GCC usually begins the intercession after the new year in January, but this year GCC is trying something new and starting the intercession before the new year. And what I wanted to do was today give you a sense of what the class is going to be about and what it is we will be doing over the course of the semester. And I'm assuming that you are able to access our Moodle site, or you wouldn't be watching this particular video. And you'll see that at the top of our Moodle site, there is a general section. And in that general section, there are several icons to help you navigate the course itself. And the first one is entitled Syllabus and Other Documents. And that's where I am uploading our syllabus, our course outline, and any of the other documents that I would be normally distributing as a handout in a face-to-face class. I would be uploading into that particular folder. I personally recommend that you make hard copies of all of the documents in syllabus and other documents, just because I think it's easier to reference hard copies. And I certainly make hard copies, but the choice is up to you. What I will be talking about today are the two documents that I have uploaded into that folder, the syllabus and the course outline. And below that icon, you can see that there is an icon for past class sessions. So what I will be doing is retiring each week into the past class sessions folder so that you can access our current week, and when that week has elapsed, basically when we've gotten to Friday of this week, I will put that in the past class sessions folder so you can access that throughout the course of the semester if you so wanted to. But basically what you would be able to see on our homepage is the week that we are working on. And this being an intercession class, it's a very condensed class. It's only approximately 3 weeks long, but we do the equivalent of what we would do in an academic semester, which is approximately 16 weeks long. But I'll be talking a little bit more about that as I review the syllabus and the course outline. And below that icon, you'll see that there is an icon entitled Discussion Forum. So what I am going to be doing is posting videos much like this one. And at the ending of each of the videos, you will have a discussion forum response to respond to. And your response, I count as attendance, as if you are actually attending the class in a face-to-face situation. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well as we review the syllabus and the course outline. So those are the three major icons that you would be using over the course of the semester. I have a couple of optional icons. One is entitled Optional Chat, and it's just that, it's optional. If you ever wanted to have a chat with your classmates and or with me, you could do that through that particular icon. And optional Zoom, if you were to click on that, you will see my Zoom information so that if you ever wanted to Zoom with me, you could just go to that particular icon. And what I'm going to do now is transition into talking about the syllabus and the course outline. So you might want to read it over first, or you might want to perhaps take a hard copy of it. And certainly what I am going to do is not something that you need to remember in its entirety, because you can always reference back over the course of the semester. But I thought it would be better for you to have a sense of the semester as a whole. And I suppose in a public speaking class, your biggest burning question is, how are we going to do public speaking in an online format? So I may as well just address that first, and then I can get into the details as the class progresses. But basically, you would be recording speeches, much like I am recording class sessions, and you would be uploading that onto our Zoom site. As the semester progresses, I will be adding icons to the general section for you to upload your speeches, and your classmates will be instructed to watch your particular speech video. I will watch your speech video as well. And that would give an overview, I suppose, of what we would do in a face-to-face situation. Obviously, speaking to a camera is very different than in a face-to-face situation. So this class is being taught in a face-to-face situation next semester on Thursday evenings. But I understand that the world has become basically digital. Certainly after COVID, that's the case. And this class is a great example of how I can basically run a course through a digital format and still be able to communicate. So in one way or another, the skills of public speaking, whether you're doing it to a live audience or you're doing it to a camera, are skills that overlap with one another. So there are differences, obviously, that we will be talking about over the course of the semester. But certainly in a world of social media and influencers, speaking to a camera is perhaps becoming even more common than speaking to a face-to-face audience. So, in terms of reviewing the syllabus, which I'm going to start with first, at the top of the syllabus, you'll see that we are meeting intersession 2025-2026 because we are starting the class in the ending of December in 2025, and we are ending the class in January, and that would be in 2026. And we are meeting, obviously, online on Moodle. And my name is, as I had indicated, Lillian Ruiz. And most people call me Lillian. I'm pretty informal. Feel free to call me whatever you feel comfortable with. My email is here, which is just my surname, no first initial, Ruiz, R-U-I-Z, @gcc.mass.edu. If you're wondering why I don't have the first initial in my email address the way most people do, is because of when I started working at GCC, which was in 1993, believe it or not, a time when we didn't have email. And when we were initially assigned email addresses, they were based just on surname until it was very quickly realized that that would lead to a lot of duplication. So having a surname and a first initial was instituted. But if you ever see somebody who just has their surname as their email address and they work at GCC, they've probably been here a very long time. My phone number is 775-1236, which would connect you to my office line. That's not a number that you can text to. I will be checking my office messages on a fairly regular basis. But of course, you can always access me through email as well. My office is North 328A. That's probably not going to be of too much importance to you as an online student. It is in the Inclusion and Diversity Center, if you're wondering, which is a great place for studying or for meeting like-minded people. There's a little kitchenette there. There's a little study area and a computer there, and there's also a common room with some soft furniture and board games. So I encourage you to visit whenever you're on campus. My office is located there as well if you ever wanted to talk about inclusion or diversity. And because this is an online class and it's during the intersession, I don't have any formal office hours. They're by appointment, but certainly if you wanted to meet via Zoom or via telephone, we could make arrangements for that. The textbook. Now, the 21st edition of the book is entitled Principles of Public Speaking by Horn. That is the most recent edition of the textbook. It's always ideal to get the most recent edition of the book, but you can use older editions. Now, that said, if you're using older editions, your page numbers will be different. The chapters might be in a different order, and you may not necessarily get all of the information that you would get in the most recent edition of the book. But I'm planning on posting videos, much like this one, where I'm talking about the information from the textbook so that you would get an overview of the major points within the book. So you should get a copy of the book. Again, ideally, you would have the newest copy of the book, but you could certainly use older editions of the book as well. With the note here that it's assumed that you have a good dictionary and thesaurus for reference. Not that I expect you to go out and buy dictionary and thesaurus. I'm well aware that your computer programs are probably loaded with these resources, but having access and using can be two very different things. And as we will talk about, while having a dictionary, which gives word definitions and parts of speech, and also will give you etymology, word history, and having a thesaurus, which gives you synonyms, words that are similar but different so that you're not repetitious in your writing, is always a useful resource. Perhaps less so in a public speaking class, because ultimately one of the differences between public speaking and writing is that with writing you've got time to refine and edit and change so that you've got the cleanest version possible. And when you are delivering a speech, whether it be to a camera or to the public, you're doing it within the moment. And that means that you're not going to have that level of precision, nor are you expected to. So one of the things I talk about in this class is that this is not a class in editing. As you will see with the videos that I'm posting, they're done in one take, which is what you are going to be expected to do, one take. So yes, it wouldn't be perfect. But of course, if you were speaking to a face-to-face class, you would be giving one take, so to speak. It would be in the moment itself. So the course description is that this class talks about the principles of public speaking as communication, stressing the role of the speaker in the communication process. And the course emphasizes the proper preparation and delivery of speeches. And in addition to delivering speeches, we also will be participating through discussion forums as small group activities. There is a prerequisite for this class, English, what we call Composition 1 or English 101. You might know it as English 103 or 105 if you took an English class at GCC in the past, or its equivalent at another institution. So the idea is that you've already talked about how to formulate an argument, which is one of the things we will do in public speaking. So that's one of the reasons why English Comp 1 is a prerequisite. So if you think you have not met that prerequisite here at GCC or at another institution, please reach out to me so we could talk about what options make the most sense for you. So under student learning outcomes, I've indicated the goals of this particular class. That as a result of successfully completing this course, you'll be able to improve your oral communication skills, because obviously if we've gotten this far in our education, we all have oral communication skills, but it's a skill that you can develop over a lifetime. To develop skills in self-confidence in inquiring and presenting information. Sometimes we already know the information we're going to present, so it's a question of how do we present it. But sometimes we need to research and find that information. We'll be doing both over the course of the semester. To apply critical and analytic thinking. And this is a buzzword oftentimes in academia, critical thinking, which is not being, let's say, negative as in criticism, but it's asking questions, inquiring, interpreting. It's what I think toddlers do very well. They ask the question, why? And really critical thinking is about why. I've often said the difference between high school and college. In high school, you learn what, and in college, you try to determine the why, which can be rather complex. To promote a greater understanding of communication in formal and informal settings, that basically we change our communication based on the situation and the environment. And to promote each student's unique sense of voice. You shouldn't sound like me nor the textbook. You should sound like yourself. But of course, we want to make sure that we're following some of the conventions that have been found to be effective for communicating. So procedures. I'm going to post a video of myself, much like this one, discussing the class material at the time or by the time that our class would normally meet in person. So if we were meeting in person during the intersession, we would meet Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. So you can expect that every Monday through Friday, So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 9 a.m. there will be a video much like this one for you to watch. In fact, I'm going to try to post the videos the night beforehand, to be quite honest with you. But certainly by 9 a.m. you should have a video to watch, and you have 48 hours in which to watch that particular video for that class and answer its corresponding attendance question in the class discussion forum folder that I was talking about. Now, certainly, if you need an extension and you can't watch the video and answer the question within 48 hours, just ask me for an extension. I'll be happy to grant it to you. But again, the intersession is highly condensed, so we don't have the kind of latitude that we would have in a 16-week semester. Your answer on the class discussion forum is counted as your attendance for that particular class. Now, you're certainly encouraged to have interaction in the discussion forum with your classmates, but you're not required to. Almost, again, like a face-to-face situation where you are encouraged to participate in a face-to-face situation, respond to your classmates, but you're not required to. So I understand that some students learn best by participating, others learn best by listening. I want to honor all of that, so you can decide how much or how little you decide to participate with your peers. But you are going to be required to read all of your peer responses and also my responses to all of your peers as well as yourself. This will give you a good idea of what we would have talked about in a face-to-face situation if we were having a class discussion. And there will be some periodic quizzes over the course of the semester announced in advance. They will be open book, open notes. And I'm going to ask that when you complete those quizzes that you send them to my email. And the reason why is because my grading program works better through my email than through Moodle. So to send that via PDF to my email, and I will return those graded quizzes to you. Basically, they will be 20 question quizzes. There will be 4 over the course of the semester. I drop the lowest quiz grade in the event that you miss a quiz or do poorly on a quiz. Or if you take the first 3 quizzes and you're content with your grades, you can elect to drop the final quiz and not take it if you wanted to. And again, the quizzes will be based on what we talk about in the class videos and what the textbook talks about as well. And the way that we're going to run this class is through class discussion through our class discussion forums, and some group work through our class discussion forums, some mini lectures, that's the videos that I'm going to be posting, and student speeches that you pre-record and post for class viewing. Now, I personally just record on my cell phone, and then I upload onto YouTube, and then I upload that link onto our Moodle site, which is how I recommend that you do it. It's probably the easiest way to do it. But again, we'll talk about this in more depth as the semester progresses. I just wanted to give you an overview of the entire semester. So the requirements for the class is to complete all of the reading and any of the writing assignments by their due dates. You will have 3 graded speeches over the course of the semester. The first is going to be 5 minutes long, and it will be an autobiographical speech in which you get to basically tell your classmates a little bit about yourself. The second speech, which will be about midway through the semester, is an informative speech. It will be 10 minutes long, and this is where you get to teach us, to inform us about something. And the third speech, which is at the ending of the semester, is 15 minutes long. So you can see the speeches increase in length by increments of 5. And you will be trying to convince us to either take a position or to take an action, or both. And failure to deliver a speech on the date assigned will result in failure for the assignment unless the student has unforeseeable, emergency, and justifiable reasons based on the evaluation of the instructor. And it's going to be important that you upload your speech on the dates indicated because your peers are going to need to have time to watch those speeches and respond to them. More on that later. And of course, as I indicated earlier, periodic quizzes will be given, and I will drop the lowest quiz grade. Therefore, generally speaking, no makeup quizzes will be given. Now, if you're reading along the syllabus with me, you'll see that there is now an institutional services disability statement. If you are a returning student in GCC, you're probably familiar with this, but I wanted to read it nevertheless. That Greenfield Community College values inclusion and equal access to its programs and activities and is committed to fostering an environment of respect and full participation. Our goal is to create learning environments that are equitable, inclusive, and welcoming. So if there are aspects of the instruction or design of this course that result in barriers to your inclusion or accurate assessment or achievement, please notify me as soon as possible. And if you're a student with a disability and you need a reasonable academic accommodation, please contact the Office of Disability Services as soon as possible to discuss your needs and options, and the contact information is indicated there as well. So, going to the section entitled Speeches, in this course we will examine the following principles of speech delivery. Number one, discovering and limiting the topic. Now, I've given you some general ideas of what it is you're going to be discussing: autobiographical, informative, and persuasive. But you need to determine the specifics of that and how do you accommodate that topic to the time that you've got. Two, adapting to the audience. And in some ways, you've got an advantage here because your audience will be your classmates and myself. Sometimes when you are, let's say, posting online or you are delivering a speech live, you don't necessarily know who your audience is going to be. So even this limited information that you're posting to your classmates gives you, and your teacher gives you, some information about who your audience is. Gathering information. And again, for your first speech, an autobiographical speech, my assumption is that you won't really need to gather a lot of information because it's based on your life history. Though certainly you're encouraged to interview family, friends, and look up, if you wanted to, Ellis Island records, but you're not required to do any of that. For the informative speech, you might need to gather information, though I usually suggest to students, especially in a condensed situation as in this one, that you inform us or teach us about something that you already have some knowledge about. And the persuasive speech is going to require you to use 3 outside resources. So, regardless of what it is you're persuading us about, whether it's a topic that you have a lot of knowledge about or a little knowledge about, the outside resources help to give you credibility. So, this is where you are going to have to gather information. Organizing and outlining, perhaps the most important part of the class, as we will be discussing. It's all in the prep work. And that involves also outlining the main points of your speech. And in fact, you are going to have to put together an outline of your speeches, and you are going to have to submit that outline with your speech. And without an outline, your speech won't be evaluated. Now, we'll talk about different ways to put together outlines, but outlines are very personal. And basically, it's about less is more. That you don't want to have so much information on an outline that you can't keep eye contact to your audience or to the camera, because the camera is your audience in this instance. So you want keywords and phrases. So it's probably a much sparser outline than what you might be accustomed to writing when you're writing, let's say, an academic paper, when it's the exact opposite, where you want to be as detailed as possible. But in fact, we'll have an entire chapter devoted in class devoted just to organizing and outlining. Developing an acceptable style suiting purpose and occasion, and how you present yourself, let's say, at a funeral is probably different than the way you would present at, let's say, a party or at the workplace or at a wedding. So ultimately, you adapt based on the purpose and the occasion. Practicing and presenting the speech, and the more you practice, the more comfortable you get with actually delivering. Coping with communication, apprehension, nerves, in effect, and active listening, responding to the speeches of others. And I know that everybody is focused on delivering their speech, but as important as you watching the speeches of others, because that's how you are going to be learning how to present your own speeches, by watching other people present. So much so that I'm actually going to be showing some practice speeches over the course of the semester. Students much like yourself, but in no way affiliated with GCC, speeches that have been uploaded onto YouTube and are available for public viewing, so we can get perhaps a sense of some models of how we could present an autobiographical and an informative and a persuasive speech. As I indicated, these will be the 3 graded speeches you'll be doing over the course of the semester: autobiographical, informative, and persuasive. I'll give more specific guidelines as the semester progresses, and you will select your topics with assistance from the instructor. The instructor needs to approve the topic beforehand. Outlines will be required for all 3 speeches, as I indicated, and we will be talking about different ways to construct outlines in class. I ask that you send your outlines to my email, ruiz@gcc.mass.edu. And the outlines I will be evaluating in a very informal way. In the real world, you wouldn't even be showing your outlines to any of your audience members. But because we are in a workshop sort of situation, I will be looking at the outlines, evaluating them basically on a checkmark system, with a plus as an excellent and a good as a check plus, a satisfactory as a check. That's where usually most of the evaluation rankings end up. Less than satisfactory and unsatisfactory also exist. And you have the option to do informal, ungraded practice sessions with me if you so wanted to, but not required to. And those are, again, things that I will talk about as we talk a little bit more about due dates. Attendance, well, your class activity and discussion form, which is your attendance, is extremely important, really can't be made up, so absences and tardiness will be negatively reflected in your participation grade. There is a participation grade that I'll be talking about shortly. Excessive absences could even result in failure. And you can consult with me during office hours, but again, I don't have any formal office hours, so that would be by appointment. Conduct and demeanor, I put this on all of my syllabi for public speaking. I don't think it'll be an issue, but never has been before. Each speech is the equivalent of an examination, so both the presenter and the audience should treat it with appropriate respect. And inappropriate disruptions or responses will be negatively reflected in your final grade. So I have a section here on plagiarism that I'm going to skip and talk a little bit more about that next class, and go to the grading section. And 10% of the grading in this class is participation. So that means watching these videos, that means answering the discussion forum responses, and doing the class activities. So doing the readings and so forth. And I can tell you right now, the best way to do well in this class is to do all the readings, watch all the videos, and to do the best of your ability with presenting your speeches. 10% of the class are the outlines, the 3 outlines you'll be doing for the 3 speeches you will be presenting. Again, outlines are graded in an informal way. So they are on a checkmark system. So again, another way to do well in this class is to submit in your outlines. And not the outline you think I want to see, the outline you actually use when you are delivering your speech. And you don't necessarily need to even follow your outline, as we will talk about, because your audience would never see your outline. The outline is there for you. I liken it to the net a trapeze artist might use if they fell off of the high wire. A good trapeze artist doesn't fall, but also a good trapeze artist knows that they could fall. So it would be foolhardy to perform without a net. So you can think of your outline in that way. You might not even need to glance at your outline because you're so familiar with it. But if you lose your train of thought, your outline is there in front of you so that you can refer to it. And speech number 1, that 5-minute autobiographical speech, is 20%. Speech number 2, your 10-minute informative speech, is 20%. Speech number 3, your 15-minute persuasive speech, is 20%. And then the quizzes over the course of the semester, 4 quizzes, 20 questions for each quiz, mostly short answer, multiple choice, and true false. It's an open book, open note quiz based on the information we cover in class, as well as the readings that we will be doing. That's 20%. And again, I dropped the lowest quiz grade. And that's how you get to 100%. For an A, excellent, and a B, good, and a C, satisfactory. Yes, I'm aware there are other letters and grades that follow the C, but I prefer to just talk about the first 3, A, B, C, either excellent, good, or satisfactory, especially during the first day of class. So That's basically the course syllabus. And again, I recommend that you take a hard copy of it. I have the hard copy of it right here that I was referencing as I was talking to you about the syllabus. And now I want to move to the course outline. And again, I have a hard copy in front of me here. And the course outline has a couple of notes at the top. The dates and assignments may be subject to change. These are my best guesses of what it is we're going to be doing when, but we will finish everything by the ending of the semester. And that the reading should be completed before the dates indicated. So this is what I'm going to be talking about during that particular date. And you'll see that I've got the semester divided up into weeks, and in our first week, today, Monday, what's listed for the 29th of December is introduction, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm just reviewing the syllabus and the course outline. What would be ideal, but I understand the world is not always ideal, is that you could read the chapter on speech anxiety, which is chapter 3 in the newest version of the textbook. Do not panic if you do not have the newest version of the textbook or you don't have any version of the textbook, because I'm going to be showing a video next class from Toastmasters, which is an international organization that's devoted to helping people improve their public speaking skills, that talks basically about an overview of all of the major elements that we are going to be discussing. And we'll talk a little bit about speech anxiety as well before the Toastmasters video, so that should help you get a sense of an introduction for the class. My goal and my hope is that by Wednesday you've got access to the textbook, where the first chapter is about the need for public speaking and chapter 2 is about different perspectives. Note that there is an edition of the textbook on reserve in the GCC library that you can reference that may or may not be of use to you. And of course, I understand that this is the first week of the semester. Even though it's a highly condensed semester, it's still the first week, which means that you may not necessarily be able to get to all of the readings on the dates that I have assigned for week 1. And I've sort of adapted the semester for that. Now, Thursday is the 1st of January. That is New Year's Day. So there will be no class posted then. I will be posting a class, as I indicated, on Tuesday the 30th by 9 a.m. And I'm going to try to post it the night beforehand, to be quite honest. And also Wednesday the 31st by 9 a.m. And then no class on Thursday. What I will post on Thursday is that it's New Year's Day. That is a holiday. And then on Friday, I will have a class posted by 9 a.m. where I will be talking about Chapter 4, Understanding Audience, and Chapter 5, Audience Analysis. And I've tried to put most of the textbook readings up front before you actually have to deliver a speech, so that you could utilize the information from the textbook. So my hope is that everybody is certainly settled in by week 2, so that on Monday, the 5th, what we will be talking about on Monday, and as you can see, we basically have a couple of chapters devoted to each day. Chapter 7, Generating Ideas, and Chapter 8, Organizing and Outlining. On Tuesday, the 6th, what we'll be talking about is Chapter 9. Again, this is from the most recent edition of the book. Introductions, Conclusions, and Transitions. And Chapter 10, Language. Honestly, that's the bulk of the textbook. When we get to Wednesday, January 7th, we will talk about Chapter 11, Delivery and Practice, and we will have our first quiz. And then on the 8th, of Thursday, is when I am going to be asking you to post your autobiographical speech, your 5-minute speech. So we would have gone through most of the textbooks so you can utilize most of those elements. And we would have had a little bit of time to talk about that autobiographical speech. On Friday is when we are going to be talking about Chapter 6, Finding and Using Supporting Material, which is something that you will be doing for upcoming speeches. And Chapter 12, Using Visual Media. You're not required to use visual media for your first speech. You're certainly allowed to if you wanted to, but I didn't want you to think about having to use an audio or a visual in addition to thinking about performing your first speech. So that's something that we will save for the upcoming speeches. And What you will be doing on the 9th, in addition to hearing my discussion about supporting materials and visual media, is you will be viewing your classmates' speeches that would have been posted the day beforehand on Thursday. And you will be sending me one strength and one weakness of each of your peers' speeches. You'll be sending that via email. I'll talk a little bit more about that as the time comes up. But this is one of the reasons why it's important that you post your speech on time so that your classmates have time to review that speech and to send me feedback. What I will be doing is posting a summary of the feedback that I receive from each of you from your peer reviews. That gets us into week 3. And we meet on Monday the 12th to talk about informative speeches, which is chapter 13, which is what speech number 2 will be about, and also a diversifying speeches. And on the 13th, Tuesday, I'm going to ask you to review chapter 11 again, which you would have already read, Delivering Practice. And this is where you get quiz number 2 to help prepare you for Wednesday the 14th, which is when I'm going to ask you to post speech number 2, your informative speech. And then on the 15th, what we are talking about, which is the very last chapter in the book that we would be addressing, and that's chapter 14, Speeches to Persuade, to help prepare you for your next speech the following week. And this is when I will ask you to view speech number 2 from your classmates. So on Thursday, you'll be viewing the speeches that your classmates posted on Wednesday. And then on Friday, on the 16th, I will ask you to once again review chapter 11 about delivery and practice, so that will help you with posting your third speech. You'll have your third quiz on that day. Monday the 19th, so this is week 4, the ending of the semester, Martin Luther King Day. There are no classes on that date, so you can use that long weekend to help you prepare for speech number 3, which you would be posting on January 20th, which is a Tuesday, speech number 3. And then on the 21st, on Wednesday, is when you would be reviewing the speeches that were posted by your classmates on the 20th on Tuesday and sending me peer feedback. And then the very last class, the 22nd, which is Thursday, which is where we sum up and where we have our quiz number 4. So that basically is the review for the semester as a whole. And as you can see, there is also included in this a speech rating handout that is something that we are going to be talking about over the course of the semester. This is how I'm going to be evaluating your first speech by using this template, where it's divided up into introduction, body, conclusion, and then it's divided up into elements of delivery. All of those things we'll be talking about. So that basically is a review of our syllabus and our course outline. So at this particular point, we are done with talking about the major elements of the class. What's left is for you to answer your first discussion forum question, which is going to be asking you to briefly introduce yourself to the class. You're free to upload audio or visuals, but you're not required to. But that will be your first discussion forum response, which again is due in 48 hours. And again, if you needed additional time, I'd be happy to grant that to you. And what I will be doing is posting another video for Tuesday, where we will begin to talk about some of the content of the class. We'll talk about speech anxiety, and we will also view a video by Toastmasters. So I hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, and we will continue on next class. And welcome again to Intersession PCS 101. Take care. Bye-bye.